Hello and welcome to Cool Coffee with Kansas Principals. By and for school administrators, this podcast is intended to promote candid discussion and insight about our great profession. My name is Rick Sola, and as Communications Director for the Kansas Principals Association, I am the host, but I am certainly not the feature. Sit back, take a sip, and enjoy. This is Cool Coffee with Kansas Principals. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to Cool Coffee with Kansas Principals. Today I am here with Dr. Danielle Ambrosia, who is an assistant principal at State College Area High School in Pennsylvania's 26-27 Assistant Principal of the Year. Congratulations. With 16 years in education and 5 in school leadership, Danielle brings a student-centered, equity-driven approach to building safe, inclusive, and connected school communities. Since joining State High School's administrative team in 2021, she has led initiatives that strengthen school culture, including school-wide PBIS celebrations, student-designed mental health summits, and structured MTSS supports focused on the whole child. She oversees 9th grade students and 9th through 12th grade ELs. Danielle holds a master's degree in secondary education and curriculum and instruction from Penn State, as well as a doctorate in education and educational leadership and management at Drexel University as recently as December 25. Congratulations. And she regularly presents at the state and national levels on equity, discipline reform, and meaningful data use. Danielle, welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Great. It's great having you on the show, and I'm excited to talk about our main topic today, our anchor topic of PBIS, and to hear your take on it, because we're talking about PBIS in the high school where you're at.
Yeah, thank you.
And so, PBIS here in Kansas is, it's all over the state, and we have the building I'm in. We've been using it for a while, but I'm at the middle school, and I see a lot of, the middle school is kind of its own thing, just like high school, elementary. And as we work with PBIS, some of the challenges we encounter are different than what high school encounters. And that's been a topic where I'm at, the district I'm at, is how do we make PBIS relevant in the high school setting? So really excited to hear about your take on PBIS. And so just starting at the very beginning, PBIS, where you're at, what was there prior that led to the creation of your system?
Yeah, thank you. Well, so thanks for having me on. I'm really excited to talk today. So I have had I would call it great fortune of being a school leader now in the building that I taught in and student taught in. So I've only ever worked in the State College Area High School professionally. And about almost 12 years ago now, in 2014, I was teaching English, and the 9th grade administrator at the time kind of was charged with taking on high school PBIS. And to be honest, we didn't have a lot of PD on it. It was kind of gaining momentum on the eastern side of the state, and we're centralized in Pennsylvania. But she said, I really think this would work really great in our 9th grade academy that we were trying to get off the ground. And so it was very interesting now reflecting on that, philosophically and pedagogically. It was kind of this belief that, this will just happen in 9th grade, and then the kids will just know how to behave. And it'll be 9th grade teachers' duty and kind of problem, right, to teach these expectations, and kids will just get it. And obviously that failed, hard. So after a couple years of figuring out as a school, hey, that's not going to be enough, we did go to some PBIS trainings. I went as a teacher leader that were offered through our IU partners, intermediate unit partners. And then really, before I became a school leader in 2019, 2021, it became a district initiative that we, as the State College Area School District, we're going to have a K-12 MTSS team, including PBIS K-12. And that was really exciting because I think as someone that had done some of the teacher leader work years prior, I was ready for that and I was excited for that. And then I became a school leader kind of through that process. So when we started, it wasn't necessarily me that first year, but an assistant principal led a team of about 40 to 50 students, and then also about 15 teacher volunteers to really get student and staff buy-in regarding what's this going to look like, what's an acknowledgement system look like, what are students motivated by, what might be helpful. one of the traps we did not want to fall in as a staff, even from the initial 2014, Hail Mary that we tried, was really like, we don't want to replicate what's going on in the middle school. Not that what they're doing isn't great, but for that age 14 to 18, we knew it probably wouldn't stick, because usually when students start with us in ninth grade, they're ready to do something that feels a little bit more quasi-adult. And so that committee then was kind of the COVID era at the beginning of that. So they didn't get a lot of stability. So when I started in 2021, it was kind of like this renewed commitment that by the end of the year, we were going to have a plan for 22-23 for what we called a soft rollout for Tier 1 school-wide expectations in the school. So I began to co-lead that committee with another assistant principal, same kids, same staff. And we met monthly. We would release teachers from like an afternoon. We would release those kids from an afternoon. And we did a lot of activities with the IE. We got a lot of student feedback. We did kind of some problem of practice workshops, which I thought were really fun and interesting. And a couple things became really apparent. The first was that students really felt like at the high school level, they did not want a ticket system. They were very honest. They said those things are going to end up on the floor, and no one's going to care if they get them or not. And so I thought that was very interesting. And then the second part that we got from that was really staff did not want it to feel like one more predetermined external reporting type thing. They thought if we could integrate this into what we already do well, that would be very helpful. And so we basically took those ideas, built out a matrix for school-wide expectations, and we only focused on two areas. We focused on our hallways, and we focused on our bathrooms, because that's where a lot of our discipline incidents were occurring. And I think that in the framing of that to our staff, we were like, here's the two goals that we want to meet. We really want to get students' discipline down, not just for data to make ourselves look good, right? But also we really want kids maximizing their instructional time. We do not need kids all over the building, kind of treating the building like a mall in the 90s. We wanted them, if you're in the bathroom, you have 5 minutes. This is gonna be the procedure for everybody. And our staff really bought into that. So we did a slow rollout, which was really great. And then the next year we added all of the steps, all of the areas in the school for school-wide expectations. And for the acknowledgement system, that first year, we didn't really do acknowledgements individually. We did whole school acknowledgements in the form of what we called mental health summits. And that was really led by our principal. And students said, we don't have time to connect. We don't have malls. We don't have places we can go all the time unless you're involved in a sport and you're doing a group activity. And we thought that was really interesting too, because when I think back to my teenage years, there were a ton of places to converge and hang out outside of the school setting that was okay. And they don't really have that when we thought about our context broader than school in our town.
So a mental health summit, is that just a social opportunity, or is it more in depth than that?
It's social and activity-based. So basically what we do is we run instructional time on a 2-hour delay, but students show up at regular time. And then we have anywhere from 30 to 40 separate activities going on in one specific area or level of the school. And those things range from, we do one in December and one in March. So those things range from basketball and basketball bracketing to we have community groups come in. We have our Jana Marie Foundation, who's one of our community partners that does focus specifically on supporting kids and adolescents with their mental health, and doing crafting or doing gratefulness cards. We have our counselors doing specific activities. We have some teachers that are leading things they do outside of school, like potting plants, or teachers get a say and opportunity in what they want to offer. We also sometimes offer okay, if you want to relax in the auditorium and commit to watching a full-length movie, you're not going to be in and out, but we have teachers supervising that as well. And so really kids get to, in some cases, roam and try different activities. We've had staff bring in therapy dogs, and they get to kind of interact with the dogs a little bit, but we just shut it down for 2 hours, and all the adults in the school are out connecting with students. And that has been really moving and impactful in that kids get to decompress, yes, but they also get to engage in a way that's atypical in the school setting. And they get to make connections with people that they don't necessarily have in class. And that we feel like is really important. We really want students connected. We really want students working with the adults in the building. And we want the adults in the building to know as many kids as humanly possible, right? Because that's going to create this relational safety net, which again is going to help those school-wide expectations. So we started with those things, whole school. And we also had birthday treats. So every month we have our culinary arts program, whip up a birthday treat. It's different month to month. And then if it's your birthday on a specific day, we put out signs in the morning at ID check-in, like it's birthday treat day for March or April or whatever the month is. And at lunch, you give your name to our PBIS coach, and she marks you off, and you get a treat. And we do summer birthdays in June as well. So it's really positive. And kids, we collected a lot of feedback that first year, and kids and staff alike were really like, this is working. This is positive.
So going back to, I guess even before the first year, you mentioned, I like the way you put it. You said we tried it maybe back in 2014 and you fell hard. I think you said something like that it was a hard fail, perhaps. The easy part is those students are no longer in the building and you have new students, but a lot of the staff would be. When you're building a new PBIS, and it kind of resonated with me because where I'm at, we had a similar experience at about that same time, and now it's kind of resurgent with the initiative, and it's been more successful. But what did you do to, I guess, build a positive framework around something that may have had a pretty negative connotation from those who have been there?
That's a great question. Number one, so I work on a team with one associate and one head principal, and then there are 3 of us assistant principals. So it's an administrative team of 5. One of the things I think we do well as a team is we are relentlessly transparent. So when we, in August in service, rolled this out and said this was the work of the committee last year, we put some of those committee members in front of staff. They were people that I think are widely respected, not just very new teachers that, are a little green but excited. A lot of our veterans wanted to be involved because they saw the need as the discipline coming back from COVID really escalated. I think, honestly, most schools were in that situation where, when we talk about school violence, that's something that you want to create the least amount, right, of those types of incidents. And we had more than I've ever seen. And really, overall in our building, that wasn't a ton, but for us, it was too much. And so I think staff was ready to try something to say we got to connect with kids in a proactive way. Putting those vets in front of staff worked, but we were honest. I said, listen, I was a teacher when this happened, and I failed at it. And here's why I think that happened, and here's what we thought about when we were designing this matrix. And we also, again, took feedback on that matrix, and then we adapted it from that feedback, which was a heavy task because we have a staff of 200 teachers and about 100 support staff. So that was heavy, but also very helpful in the grand scheme of things. And I think the people that weren't there at that time, many were, but the people that were new or just new to the building, not new to the profession, were like, okay, like, we can't mess this up twice. And that actually kind of created some camaraderie around, like, all right, we got to do this to fidelity. And if one teacher, as we know, is not doing it to fidelity and, letting kids get away with things, they put that in air quotes, but then the other teachers, there is going to be tension with that. And we talked openly about that. Like, we want to be each other's best support. We want to be making sure it's never like, oh, that's not my job. It's more of I got you. What do you need? How can I help? That's the kind of culture and climate we want to build in our building. And so we were transparent. Like, if you're the person that's not going to follow through, we are going to have to reckon with that a bit. And really, we had tons of follow through. We were very positively surprised, like, wow, this is working. And it brought our out of school suspension numbers down from like a total of 200 plus days the year prior. And then the rollout year, we were at 44 days out of school. That was it for a 2,300 kid high school.
Wow.
So, we were kind of blown away by that. We were like, whoa, that's interesting.
And that starts to build a case for let's keep reinvesting. And you've kind of, I have a question, but you've kind of answered my thought, and I should have asked this at the top. You said you have 200 teachers, 5 administrators. How many students are at your school?
We have 2,350, and we have a virtual program. So we have a few, like probably 50 to 60 students that are hybrid. So they come in for their electives, but they do their virtual core courses online.
Okay. And so you mentioned getting feedback from students about what they want. They wanted something that felt not like middle school, felt a little more, whether it's adult or just high school appropriate. What was the feedback that they gave you?
Yeah, so I just love teenagers. Like, I just want to say, I can't even wait till my own kids are teenagers. That is like my preferred age. But they were so darling. They were like, no offense, we don't want to feel like babies because we can drive. So stop with the baby stuff. And we were like, oh, okay.
And you're like, that's a good point.
Yeah, like they were like, we are old enough to drive, work, and some of us enlist in the military and vote. So like, we're not interested in like your cute little tickets, because we mocked things up like it could look like this, it could look like that, and we thought, oh, if we give them like a menu, and they totally shot us down, like with those teenage vibes of they know best. But that was what we needed, because we were like, well, we don't want to waste resources, and we definitely don't want to waste time trying to force something that's not there. So when we ask them, what do you want? Like, we hear you teenagers, you don't want X. What do you want? And you know what they said? They said, we want time with our friends, mental health summits, right? And we want you to call our parents. Can you call and say like good things about us? Because there's a lot of like positive calls home or notes home in elementary and even in middle, but like no one calls at the high school when you're just doing what you're supposed to do. And like that would be great if my mom knew, like, I am actually trying in science, because what's the first thing a teenager says when they get home after school? Like, honey, how was your day? Fine. Like, there's not a whole lot of oomph behind that. And so I thought that was really interesting too.
So what's the currency, or is there a currency?
Yeah.
How do you, you're building relationships oftentimes. We have tokens where I'm at, and we really promote. It's not about the token, but it's that exchange, and then using their name and the behavior. Again, that's middle school. What's the currency where you're at?
Yeah, so what we did the first year is we were like, okay, we hear you, we respect what you're saying, and so what we did is we did like quarterly recognition. So we did the mental health summits twice in a year, and then that was in second and third marking period. Then in the fall and in June, we did over lunches, like a fall fest and a summer fest. And basically, we had student bands perform. We had fun, like, drink stations or slushy stations. The music was going. We raffled off some things that anyone who knew our mantras, like our PBIS expectation verbiage, they could enter the raffle as many times as they wanted. We raffled off Stanleys. We raffled off some speakers, like things fun for summer, and they loved that. We also did, and I don't think I have one in my office, I'm looking around. We also did a art class, our commercial design class designed little like almost memeable faces of admin with like, it was really fun. And then like that became kind of currency. Like we only printed a certain amount of my lead principals, right? And people were like, I want Mrs. Tobias' face saying like, we love you, State High, because that's what she says to kids every day. Like my face had something on it, and people thought that was kind of funny. And then they were trading them. So we've used kind of those silly, memeable, quick sharing things as currency.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it was, at first we were like, we don't know how this is going to go. We might end up on like some toilet seats or something, but it didn't. It was great. And I think too, that's always like a negotiation as a high school assistant principal or high school admin. Like this could go really bad. Like someone could make a fake, dating account with my face on it, and here we go. But I think when you have faith in it and you're transparent with kids, and again, that art class designed them. So we approved it. We went to visit the class. We complimented the kids on the work they did because it was really outstanding work. There was some buy-in there, and then it was like, oh, this was designed by this student. And so then students kind of got to know each other through that. Like, oh, you designed Mr. Wilson's sticker. That was so cool.
Yeah.
So that was huge. And again, it's that peer acknowledgement, which is actually very hard to do on a wide scale. So we were trying to be creative.
I like the direct involvement of students providing for some of these rewards, what have you. You've used that word, transparency. I love that relentless transparency that you said earlier, and it sounds like you do the same thing with kids. And it's authentic. I think authenticity is huge when you're working with kids, and to be able to launch an initiative like this, to be able to carry on like, hey, we're open to ideas, and we're also open to the fact that our ideas may not work. And so let's hear from you so that we can come up with something that does. So how do, the mental health summits and all these reward days, are they based on you getting recognized? Is it for the entire school? Is it limited?
Yeah.
Like, how does that work with the PBIS reward system?
So I don't know if it's an unpopular opinion or not, but we had a long staff and student team conversation about that. And we came back to it a few times in that first planning year, because I think it's kind of traditional to say, well, if you get 3 referrals, then you can't be a part of it. Then you have to go to the in-school room, or, you do your thing. And the students were like, nope, like, that's not fair. Like, so what? You have 3 referrals because you skipped class. Does that mean you don't deserve time to socialize? And, initially the school, just rule follower in me, was like, well, wait, that's not exactly the same. But then when we thought about it, and when we brought in our principal, and we brought in our superintendent, who is actually the former high school principal in the district, they were like, you know what? What if we just have everybody come? Which actually morphed into, we have an alternative school within our school district across the street. And we were like, what if the alternative kids come? So they can meet some kids and meet some adults before they transition back into, the 9-12 setting. And so we've just really held strong to, regardless of discipline incidents, number, frequency, we might have students that do require, like, hey, you need to sign up for a couple things where you're supervised. You can't free roam. We might put some parameters in for specific individuals, but it's honestly rare. And I think that it gives kids something to look forward to, especially kids that aren't motivated to come to school. I'll tell you a funny story. We had a virtual kid show up who are not typically included, but showed up and said, I was just really excited to meet people. And we thought, well, we now next year have to think about, we need to probably intentionally invite the virtual students that are full virtual, because it's a great 2-hour opportunity for them as well, meeting kids that maybe they knew from middle school, or just making new friends.
It can really expand beyond, and you're right. Like, as you start to enroll this, you've got different pockets that need to be impacted by this as well. And so, bringing in your virtual students would be a nice new rollout, new wrinkle. You mentioned the calls earlier. Who are students requesting make the calls? Are you making a lot of calls, or is it their teachers? Who's making those?
They said both. Like, they were like, if I'm in trouble for something and then I've gotten better at it, like if I've stopped skipping class, or if I've, done the work basically to make it right, I think the principal should call. And I said, okay. But really, they want their teachers to call. They want their teachers. Like, I remember one student she wasn't like a leader in the way that we think about like student council leaders, but she was always doing the right thing. She was like a perfect pick for this committee. And she said, I just want my parents to know that I'm smart. Because, like, I feel like I'm getting really smart, but they're like, are you doing your homework? Are you on your stuff? Are you checking your online assignment? Are you in the LMS? Are you sure it says not graded? And she's like, it's not because they don't believe in me, but it is because they're monitoring everything all the time because they're good parents. And it would be nice if a teacher could just call and be like, she's good, and kind of validate that effort. And I thought, yeah, that would be nice.
What a valuable insight from a student.
Yeah, I still remember it.
Yeah, I bet she's kind of speaking on behalf of a lot of her peers that aren't saying that, or maybe even able to really articulate how they feel. But that's kind of, I would imagine that's a little bit nail on the head for a lot of students that just like, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm not, maybe I'm not setting the world on fire, but I'm also like doing really well. And to get that call home, that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And they were very adamant too about calls, not just notes home.
Yeah.
And I thought that was kind of interesting too, because I think sometimes people couch adolescents in like the generation right now that doesn't want to talk on the phone. And I actually think they really value conversation, even though they're a little text heavy in their everyday interactions.
Yeah. That's really interesting, because you're right. They do more texting through themselves, but to get a call, maybe that's even adds to it. Whereas,
I don't know.
That's really great. How do you balance, like, I think some of the pushback, I saw it early on. I saw it years ago, back in the 2014, whatever era, where PBIS was maybe at a different stage, or for where I am, it was just a different rollout, where I think what we've rolled out now, it gave it a shot to succeed, whereas the previous one didn't. But the pushback always is, oh, we're rewarding kids for doing what they're supposed to do. Did you hear any of that? And then how did you combat some of that?
Yes. Yeah, and I'll be honest, not a ton. Like I really work with a staff that is down to do it. If we are like, listen, here's the research, here's our data, we think that it could improve X, Y, and Z. Again, that transparency piece, they will be all in. Like 95% of our staff is all in, and really that 5% is just like, I have more questions. We really don't. We've kind of built that culture of inquiry and not culture of like cynicism, if that makes sense. But we did initially, for people that were new to PBIS, like, okay, help me understand the why for that exact reason. And I think, so what we did is we shared our data for discipline and for attendance, and we shared that by like incident, time of day, right? Like all the PBIS stuff, location. And when they saw how quickly it was decreasing from the previous year, like we were managing 20 discipline incidents a week down to like 7. They were like, this is actually great. And that helped a ton. Individual conversations, I think, were the way that we managed that with people who were resistant at first. And I mean, I don't know, I try to be, I'm going to say relentlessly positive. So specifically, I'm recalling an instance where a staff member was kind of like, this is like kiddie stuff. Like I teach at the high level. I teach kids that are going to college. I really am not seeing the value in this. And I was like, well, I would love for you to sit on the committee because I feel like everybody on the committee is not teaching that highest level kid, that senior level kid. And we could use your insight maybe to make it more meaningful for your kids. And like, did they sit on the committee or not? Like, but I think that invitation is there. And I think it's a call in rather than well, let's get now into an argument. Right. Professionally, you know what I mean? So I think like we also will call people in, and people know that about us as a team. And so it's kind of like, well, I could criticize it and then have to volunteer, be asked to volunteer and decline, or I could try it and then ask questions because we value that too. Like I'm not implementing it in a classroom, so I can't make an assumption of like how easy that's going to be or how well it's going to work.
Right. As far as consistency, did you have any, I guess, consistency on what we recognize? And that we have an ongoing conversation about, especially consistency with, we use the Swiss system. I meant to ask that. Are you using that to document anything or as far as behaviors? But, kind of like what is your threshold of either over the line in the wrong way or something that we acknowledge, or like I said, we have tokens and I'm giving a token for this, but this person doesn't give a token. Like, there's some context in classroom, but was consistency either a concern or was it an issue, or do you see variation that's really fully appropriate with given the teacher and the space that they are in every day?
Sure. Yeah. So we, as an admin team, knew we needed to be consistent across all of us if we're handling discipline. And so what we did is we added a meeting weekly on our calendar, and we still do it every Friday morning. We circle up the 5 of us and we go through every discipline referral from the week. And if it's missing pieces, we communicate out with that specific individual who wrote it. Hey, you're missing A, B, and C, or did you call Danielle's parent? Did you assign the detention? What day? And our staff has gotten really well trained on that. So we have to email far less frequently now that we're kind of 2 years in. The other thing that we do is we meet every Thursday. We have like a admin team meeting, and we talk about all the ways in which we feel like we need to enact discipline. So we look at that stuff on Friday, but we kind of know what's going on from our email, from walking in the hallways, like, hey, 5 minutes, this happened with Danielle today, I just want to make you aware. And we make sure any type of creative disciplinary solutions, like accountability projects, anything that's like an alternative to exclusionary discipline, we are consistent with. So, for example, our school policy does not call for vaping of nicotine to be an out-of-school or in-school suspension. It calls for a cessation course. So whatever that looks like, is it, our dean designing the project? Is it doing like a state level class? Like that's consistent year to year. And we're making sure that it's not just consistent like, oh, our dean is going to run that. It's like, let's look at the actual accountability project for cessation. Let's make sure that's consistent. And if we need to modify it based on an IEP writing need or however that's going to be presented, we're doing that together. And we're transparent with that about our staff too. We're like, just give us till Friday morning. we'll figure that out. But these instances are similar, even though it's 11th grader and 9th grader. We just want to make sure we're consistent for you. And I think the staff appreciates that too. At first, I was worried they would feel like micromanaged, but I do think they feel supported.
When you said 22, 23, you've had the system in place, so several years now. Have you found it necessary to kind of reinvest every year? And then if so, or how do you reinvest every August when you start back up to remind? Because what I have found is sometimes it's easy. We're, I think, year 5 or so. You get so comfortable with it, and if you haven't had much staff turnover, there's a tendency to want to make assumptions like, oh, we know this, we do. But I've tried to we got to reinvest every year, and I kind of see it like a roller coaster. Like, okay, now we kind of need to really either focus on this part as far as implementation and being like fidelity, like you mentioned. What do you see yourselves needing to do every August?
Yeah, so we because we're really in the second year of full matrix rollout, third year of partial matrix rollout, every August, this is a massive breakout session. And especially when we added things, like we had 2 breakout sessions. And so it's that back to school in-service that I think can be overwhelming, but also really sticks with people. We also made, through Canva, an MTSS behavioral interventions flowchart. We have a QR code that goes to all of our documents. Like, we kind of made it to have it the ready in hand so you could carry it with all your things, put it in your bag, and we have it digitally on our staff site. We were trying to make things as accessible as possible. We also connect it to our new hires, their induction process in August with their mentor teacher, that they are actually going over this explicitly, and then following up throughout the year, right? So that we can train our new people well and give them a point person so they don't have to run to an admin or a school counselor every time something goes a little bit haywire in the classroom. We feel really strongly that repetition for MTSS and PBIS is necessary. We just earned Tier 1 banner status last month. And so we're one of now, I think, 63 high schools in Pennsylvania. I think there's over 550 high schools here who is doing that Tier 1. And it's funny, the IU partner who we were working with, who's been amazing, was like, now listen, usually secondary schools fall off a little bit in 2 to 3 years because of exactly what you said, Rick. Like, it's just kind of old hat, and then there are assumptions, and then people miss pieces. So we're already kind of thinking about okay, we've got to hit it hard again, and are our resources strong enough? Do we need some faculty feedback on what needs to be changed or added? And Pennsylvania doesn't have a cell phone ban yet. So we have a school procedure where phones are in bags during instructional time, but kids have their phones at lunch. We haven't hit that level of what the majority of states are right now, where it's completely away the entire time at school. Yeah,
we just passed one here in Kansas, and we already had a district policy, but we're working through to see what that'll look like in the fall and how that'll roll out. But no, it's really interesting because I have really enjoyed this second go around of PBIS. I've seen the positive and the fruits of it with all the work that goes into it, but I have seen you gotta stay on it and keep reinvesting in it. Either the time for PD with staff, there's a lot of resources potentially, but I love some of these ideas that are at no cost, making calls home, things like that. What would you say has been, a few years in now, what would you say has been the biggest success of the program?
That's a good question. So I really feel like the mental health summits are hugely successful. Kids look forward to them. We actually do it the day before winter break and the day before spring break, which sometimes people are like, are you crazy? You do a whole abridged schedule and all these activities right before you send them off for, a 5-day and a 12-day break. And we're like, yeah, we do. We can't do them when kids return from those breaks because it's actually so much to set up the day before. And it's really, we don't ever want to be unfair to our staff with their work-life balance to say hey, come in on Sunday before the first day back and do all the things. That feels really icky. But I think the timing of that has been massively helpful. The other thing that has taken off that just started this year, and this was through direction from my principal, it was kind of her idea, how military gives out coins for recognition. So she started what we call the Pride Coin Initiative. So in addition to the birthday celebrations, the whole school mental health summits, the whole school fall summer fest, right, we also now individually give these little pride coins, and they're really neat. She had a student design them, again, like kind of leveraging student voice. And they have 180 on one side, which is how many days that you have as a teacher to make an impact, and as a student, how many days you have to engage with your education. And then our PBIS, like our mascot, and then our like little mantra sayings on it. And so when a teacher wants to recognize a student, there's a Google form, so we make sure who are we seeing, who's maybe repeating on the list, who hasn't been mentioned yet. And the goal isn't necessarily to get to every student in a year. This is the first year doing it. But the goal is really to celebrate and recognize with a token. And at first, like anything, we didn't know how it was going to go. But what we found is when we were giving these out, you could give them to students. Staff can also give them to each other. Students started, we make them wear their IDs, and some of them have like those plastic ID holders. Students started putting them in their ID holders. And so at ID check-in in the morning, I'd be like, oh, you got a pride coin. And they'd be like, oh, I know, Miss Smith gave it to me. It was amazing. Like, I can't believe it. Like, I almost cried. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, And then I would follow up with Miss Smith. And, right, we would have these conversations about like, oh, why'd you pick this kid? Or tell me about that. And then kids, this is like a beautiful thing, started giving the ones that they received to each other. Wow. And I thought that was like so selfless, right? Like for a teenager, who I think are just the best of all of us, quite frankly. Like teenagers are just magical unicorns, and they're at such a cool place in their life. But to take something for your own recognition that you got as a personal accolade, and to say, hey, I want you to have this because I saw you do this thing. Just like, I mean, right, it brings like tears to your eyes. So what we then started doing, like in January, is she was like, we're going to make, my principal, she said, we're going to make an administrative pride coin. And this is for the 5 of us to give out to anyone, staff, secretary, kids. And they are a little bit elevated in that they're not like the heavy duty poker coin. They're more metal. They're pretty heavy. And so when we give them out, we try to make a big deal of it. Like I gave one to my secretary because she just is incredible. She's like the home and face of 9th grade for kids and staff. And I did that publicly at a 9th grade, kind of an impromptu staff meeting. And that was really moving. So I think like we're trying to build that culture where recognition isn't just something for fun. It's something that is integral in the type of culture and community we want to build, and we want to model it for kids. Like, yeah, let's celebrate Miss Preston in 9th grade, who does all of our amazing administrative work, but she also processes your sick notes, makes sure that your parents know what's going on in school. She's the first one at the office if you have a problem, if you need to see me. Like, let's celebrate that. And that's been, the Pride Coins have been absolutely fun.
And it's fun to draw or put some light on some people in the building that students aren't always aware of what's going on. I call them the parachute packers. You know, you don't ever see the parachute packer, but man, they're so important, you know? Mm-hmm. And so to be able to kind of show that to students, and you're totally tapping into my like social studies interest, because the coins that are given out, like I'm writing this down, like, okay, what would that look like here? Because that would be so much fun to be able to do that. No, I love this, and I appreciate your interest in coming on here and talking about PBIS. And you know, like I said, high school has kind of been that conversation where I'm at of how do we really tap into it, and so a lot of really great things happening. You just mentioned some really great people out there, and a tradition on this show as we wrap up is an opportunity for the guest to brag on their people. And because we know that everything we do and all the successes, it's really a result of all the amazing people that we have around us. So this is your opportunity to brag on the people of State College Area High School.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I think first and foremost, since we've talked about PBIS, our PBIS Tier 1 coach is Miss Jennifer Evans. She is phenomenal. She's an English teacher, and then she does PBIS as her duty. And she is the one that orchestrates all of the birthday treats, the mental health summit. I mean, she is just fierce. When you talk about someone that is leveraging every relational skill they've got and the meticulous organization, like she is absolutely unparalleled. So huge kudos to her, because we couldn't do what we're doing if it was just, the admins doing it. I think too, like my PBIS, I was the tier 1 administrator last year. This year it is my colleague Susan Hipp who's done an amazing job. She works with Jen now, and her first year in administration, we kind of did it together, and then we kind of swapped roles. So I think that she is doing an incredible job, my admin team, and honestly, just my entire staff. I think specifically 9 through 12, it's very hard to get anything off the ground in a large high school because everyone has that content-based sequencing that they need to get done. And in a lot of cases, it's very legitimate. We've got Keystones, NOCDs, like all of this very important college entrance exams stuff going on. And so I really appreciate my staff that they are able to say, wait, this is not just an extra thing. This is the thing that's going to support all those other things, right? If I've got kids maximizing their instructional time, I'm going to get academic leverage on that. If I've got kids that, struggle with behavior and I have language to talk about it with parents, that's going to help maximize my time not getting in the weeds, having an argument or what have you. So I think that that's huge. And I really just honestly want to shout out like our entire secretarial team at the high school because they are the ones who are like, oh, we need 3,600 beads to play rock, paper, scissors for one of our PBIS events at Mental Health Summit. And they're like, great, we'll order those and organize it and make sure it's all good for kids. And so I like your metaphor of the parachute packers. We call it the invisible work. But our secretarial team, we have 7 secretaries for the building. Some are with student caseloads, some are more budget, managerial, but they make everything work. Like if those folks weren't here, none of this would be possible. So we are so grateful for them, and a lot of time I think their work gets overlooked, but it is quite frankly much more important work than some of the things I do on the daily. So I really love them, and I couldn't do it without that team.
I have a staff member here who's working through their administrative license through a course, and he said in the class that he was in, they said, get to know the bookkeeper up front and the secretarial staff and the custodial staff. And it just made me feel so glad. I was glad because I remember hearing that when I was going through that many years ago. And I'm glad they're still pushing that because truly, honestly and truly, they make their school run. And I would be lost if the ladies out front here were not there doing everything they do to help make all these things happen. So I love that you gave that shout out. So
absolutely.
Well, Danielle, thank you so much for being here. We're recording this at the end of, I'm sure, a long day. It's springtime. And how much more time do you have left? When is your last day of school for the school year?
June 5th with
June
students.
5th. Okay. We're a little earlier than that, but maybe
we had a lot of snow this year.
We don't get the snow that you have up there. I'm pretty sure of that. But we're getting tornadoes. We all woke up where I'm at today to tornado sirens. That's what we woke up to about 5:30 in the morning. So
I'll take a blizzard over a tornado. I'm good.
Yeah. Well, hey, thank you so much for spending time here today. And I want to wish you all the best here this spring and end of the semester. And all the best with your PBIS program moving forward.
Thank you so much.
Check the notes section for more information on this episode and to learn more about the KPA and its mission to develop and support all principals through optimized learning, collaborative leadership, networking, and service. Be sure to check back in for our next episode and spread the word about cool coffee with Kansas principals. Catch you next time.